It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday, and you see Cthulhu's ready to take notes. Hope everybody is getting through this heat wave. Man, it seems really horrible for a lot of people. And this is the time of the summer when people's traffic is down and so craziness happens. People lose their minds. As you can see by the title of this video, I am going to talk about the comparisons that are being made on social media between the dreaded Gamergate and the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. But I want to take a few questions from other commenters. This was by request, by the way. This comparison, this going through a one place thing about what happened while it's relevant now. This is request that came through Twitter. But I do want to answer a couple of comments from the YouTube videos just to sort of make it worth it, because I do like to encourage people to comment here in a good way, because it just makes going through comments so much easier. I've been having to report so many like German language bots. I don't get it. Anyway, if you like this kind of thing, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. So, the first question, this is an interesting thought experiment, and it'll never happen, so I think it's harmless to answer. But a commenter asked, Leanna, 2 questions purely for my own curiosity. Assuming all of the associated considerations made it viable, schedules, travel, etc., would you be willing to go on Joe Rogan's podcast? And 2, if the topics were yours to choose, what would you want to talk with him about? Yeah, I don't think Joe Rogan's a bad guy. The challenge I would, I don't think you get to pick the topics, but if I could pick a topic, I'd be why the hate for games. You know, why the intense need to go negative on stuff he knows nothing about, be it games or the Canadian Prime Minister, or why would you say, I know nothing about this, but here's a hot take? What does that do? I would love to get in the guy's head. Now, he would have to not vape his shit around me, because that stuff, I have asthma and I am allergic to weed, and some people have told me that's not tobacco in those vapes, but like that's not nicotine. But yeah, I have no, there are very few people in this world that I actually hate. I do not criticize certain people's opinions because I think they're bad people. I criticize people's opinions because I think that there needs to be a check and balance on things. And it always stuns me when people assume that there is some sort of personal grievance with a person, because I'm like, what? Hold up. This opinion. I really do believe that people should be able to say what they want to say, that yanking someone down whole cloth is not the way to solve what's going on, that the rest of this video is going to be about shit going sideways sometimes, and it just becoming this beast with 1,000 heads, right? But I do think that we do need a system where when someone with a platform says something like, Canada is communist and Trudeau's a dictator, by the way, I know nothing about the fucking system, there needs to be some pushback on that with, if you know nothing about the system, why did you open your mouth in the first place? Like the lack of the lack of it, like that in my brain, I try to figure out, because I try to put myself in other people's places and go, all right, in that situation, the minute I go, I don't know anything about this, but I am not going to drop a hot take after that. And what I want to know is what drives a guy like that. with all his money and all his fame and all his influence to do that. That's what I'm fascinated by. So thanks for your question. Someone else that sort of ties in mentioned that with, and this is a good add-on to what I said about targeted harassment when we move into the whole Gamergate versus Johnny Depp Amber Heard discussion. I do think this is relevant, that account size matters. A single angry tweet from a person with millions of followers can sometimes permanently make a regular person's account unusable. If even a tiny percentage of their followers turned it into a vendetta, and with the great power of a large account comes at least some responsibility. It does change what is and is not acceptable to do. And that is accurate. I thought, see, this is where I'm about to say something and I realize it's dumb. Where I said, I thought that went without saying, but no, it doesn't go without saying. That was my Hassan Piker experience, that he took one of my videos where I was talking about the Jax ending for Mortal Kombat 11 and how taking away the free will of everybody by changing time every time the world does something you don't like, with the intent to make it that slavery never happened, doesn't eliminate slavery. It increases slavery, and therefore they turn Jax into a villain at the end of Mortal Kombat 11. That you don't eliminate slavery by essentially enslaving the entire population of the world through time resets. And by the way, PS to Americans, you can't have America without the transatlantic slave trade. There'd be a butterfly effect. Jax would cease to exist. He is an American veteran, right? He's a Black American veteran. He cannot exist, along with so many other parts of U.S. culture, without the slave trade. He'd be gone. Bye-bye. It wouldn't work. Hassan Piker took that video, sped it up to make me seem crazy, called me a white feminist, a femcel, and a racist. Blah. My mentions blew up. I had somebody DM me saying, it was actually a Black person that warned me, said, just so you know, Hassan's going off on you. I don't think he's right, just so you know. And that meant a lot to me based on the subject matter, but be aware. 2 weeks minimum of bullshit. People tracking me down in Facebook DMs, giving me lengthy lectures about how racist I was. And I said, show me what I said that was racist. I gave them a hearing. I feel that you are. So you can't accuse someone of bigotry based on a feeling. Well, you don't understand slavery. It's like, I understand the concept of more slavery is not removing slavery. I feel you are a racist. Weeks and weeks and weeks of that shit. Because that asshole made one video. And he blocked me. Hey, I'm still standing, right? So the commenter's right that I was talking about regular people. And I should clarify it. That's accurate because it is going to be relevant. Because the funny thing is the guy before Hassan was fucking Milo Yiannopoulos. And this brings us to Gamergate. Milo had this pack of people, and he was not responsible for this. A bunch of chat logs leaked about what people were doing to me and about me during Gamergate. And I had the anti-Gamergate side actively trying to ruin my career. I had I won't say pro-Gamergate because this was an offshoot of trolls that were just trying to senpai notice me with Milo, who were actively trying to get me to attempt suicide. And hence we come to my very real concerns for the female reporters for basically, Law and Crime Network and things like that are trying to be objective in this Johnny Depp, Amber Heard thing and call balls and strikes as they see it. because this has become another one of these things where I will get into the history of what I think is the same, what I think is different. But the Depp-Heard thing is no longer about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. This is an RVR battle. This is a factional battle with a lot of deep grudges and internal politics driving what we see on the surface. And so rationality has left the building. Fairness has left the building. It's just one faction with certain ideological and financial incentives against another faction with ideological and financial incentives. And nobody's going to blink. It's going to die down until the next kerfuffle, and it's going to happen all over again. And this goes all the way back. Put on your way back machine hats, kiddies. We're going to go back in time. This all sort of started, it depends, but I'll go back to the retake Mass Effect movement, where that was a legitimate objection that fans had to the ending of Mass Effect 3. And game journalists, for some reason, who happened to be left-leaning, called the people who were legitimately upset about something of a phoned-in ending to Mass Effect 3 being entitled. And that created a real schism. It was no longer about the merits of the complaints. It was about the insult, the assumption of intent. And that bad blood, as well as something called Gamergate, which had to do with pay-to-play manipulated review scores, so on and so forth, all kind of brewed in the background until the dreaded Gamergate, which I believe was coined by actor Adam Baldwin. But there was a thing called the Zopost that was put up by, should I say his name, an ex-boyfriend of the person it was written about. I'm trying not to name certain names. People can Google it. But again, one of the big differences to me about Gamergate and the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing is that the two people who were originally at the center of the whole Gamergate controversy were essentially private citizens. They worked in game dev and robotics and stuff like that, but they were not celebrities in movies with PR people and millions of dollars and management and agents and lawyers and so on and so forth. Like the commenter said, it is different. It is very, very different when you're dealing with regular people and their ability, access, and platform to speak, and major celebrities with PR teams and lawyers, right? And so this ex-boyfriend posted this thing that talked about his story of a pattern of psychological and, abuse through infidelity. And this thing blew up because of previous bad blood through certain troll channels. It was connected to the something awful 4chan board wars and everything amplified in a way that probably wouldn't have happened if these sort of pre-existing conditions were not met. And I looked into it and I immediately, the boyfriend chewed me out privately when I spoke to him because I referred to him as a disgruntled ex. And I was like, dude, I was balancing, like, read the rest of the article. It's pretty balanced. But, I get it. He's upset. He's going to have an emotional reaction. And that is the first comparison between Gamergate and the Depp-Heard thing. The average person is not great at determining who is lying and who is telling the truth. And that's no shame. It's just the reality of human behavior. People believe people they see as more similar to them or someone who seems more aligned with their values in group than someone who seems either like a shitty ex they had back in the day, or something they say reminds them of somebody who was terrible to them, or they're out group, or they believe that it is more moral to, believe women or believe minorities or whatever. There are so many biases you have to check, which is, why I'm so big on listening to understanding and making sure you're really hearing the person before you respond, because this is human nature. And so I watched this thing just get bigger and bigger, and I remember reading that post and going, all right, I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to flip the gender of the writer and the person it's written about. And I'm going to see how my opinion changes of the person. And that was my first bias check of the whole thing, right? So I went forward similarly, but Gamergate rapidly stopped being about that. And this is my other major, this is a major point of similarity between Gamergate and the Depp-Heard thing. And you can also trace this back to stuff like Comicsgate, Fandom Menace. I stayed out of those as much as possible because I did my time during Gamergate. I have my own, bless, never mind. So, right-wing figure gets involved. In the case of Gamergate, it was Milo Yiannopoulos. In the case of Depp-Heard, it was the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, I believe. They take, respectively, the pro-Gamergate, pro-Depp sides, right? There was this thing around Gamergate called the Game Journos Pros message board. And there were accusations of collusion among game journalists. Now, it was all very, God, you can't say trumped up anymore because it's got a charge. But I recognized it looked bad. I was aware it wasn't what it was being made out to be. But that's when it shifted from being a fight between two people and somebody deciding to tell their story to full-blown right-wing media versus left-wing media culture war. Because now the media was not just reporting on the story, they were the story. And anytime where media becomes the story, shit goes sideways really fast. The media, and this is, I used to be a games journalist. I did news talk radio. I still do a opinion show Fridays on the same station I do it. It's not therapy on. So I'm not speaking as somebody who doesn't do this job. Okay, I don't do games journalism anymore because it became impossible to do real games journalism. You don't have any access. I don't want to report on rumors. I want to actually report on facts. I tried to do that during Gamergate. And so I talked to both sides. One side didn't trust me, called me a whole bunch of names, but eventually did agree to talk to me. The other side didn't trust me, called me a whole bunch of names, and blocked me. The side that decided to talk to me was the pro-Gamergate side. The side that just called me a bunch of names and blocked me was the anti-Gamergate side. Both sides were horrendously verbally, emotionally abusive before the one side started talking. You understand as a reporter on a contentious topic, if you have any experience at all, that is part of it. When I used to do music journalism, I did a documentary on hip hop music, and the hip hop artists that we interviewed rightly chewed me out before every interview about the music station I worked for only knowing their number when it was basically to talk about being black and oppressed, but they wouldn't play their videos. It was a completely valid complaint. I was trying to solve the problem, but part of my job was to sit there and take it because it was a valid grievance. And if you want people to talk to you, they need to feel heard, right? These are people in an incredibly reactive state. There's trauma going on. It is not being realistic about what the assignment is to be upset about that. But the politics of aggrievement feature massively in the right-wing versus left-wing culture war. That's the currency of culture war, right? Everybody acting like they're the wounded party that's being oppressed and having things taken away from them, and nobody seems to be in charge because it's against their playbook, because if they're not punching up, then they're just punching. And we've seen this happen with the Depp-Heard thing. It is no longer about two people who are in a shitty fucking relationship. Nobody really knows what happened. All we know is what played out in public, right? And it comes down to stuff like credibility. And if you believe that donate and pledge mean the same thing. But it rapidly stopped being about that, right? You notice I'm not focusing on a lot of the major details of what happened because ultimately they're irrelevant. One person did this, another person did this, one person feels aggrieved because, so they lash out, and when they do it, it's criticism. When the other side does it, it's harassment, blah, blah. Everybody starts collecting death threats, meaning you should die, not, specifics, but everybody starts collecting death threats and aggrievement stories, and it's just trying to make the other side look as bad as possible and not really focusing on the W5H of the story. And so like Gamergate, the Depp-Heard media phenomenon, not the trial, but the media phenomenon, had a few moments where the media tried to do its job. Savannah Guthrie sat down with Amber Heard. It was, I think, a fair interview. She played it right down the middle. She gave Amber Heard a lot of opportunities to answer questions better than Amber Heard did. All right. The ratings were terrible. Why NBC then decided to do it again on Peacock without the journalistic integrity that someone like Savannah Guthrie brought to the proceedings, I have no idea. Maybe they thought it would play better on their streaming service than normal television. Maybe somebody offered them the documentary for free. I don't know. I have no inside information on that. But this is no longer about Amber Heard. Just like it's no longer about the original people, the original woman that was accused of bad stuff with Gamergate. Similarly to Gamergate, there was some muzzling of the guy involved. He was vilified and certain things were denied him for various reasons. And it's very long and it's very complicated. And I'm not a lawyer and I'm not American. So I'm trying not to delve in. I'm not British. So if I start talking in detail about the points of law there, I will mess it up. And so I'm not going to. Hope you understand. But the media phenomenon is what I find very interesting because we are back to this, it's harassment narrative. Amber Heard was harassed. Amber Heard's supporters were harassed. And we have data to prove it. You know how I feel about these things. You know how I feel about quality of data. You know how I sweat the details on this stuff. Back in Gamergate, I was very interested in how harassment was defined. Now, back during Gamergate, there was a lot of doxing. There was some swatting. Someone phoned in a fake bomb threat at a Society for Professional Journalism conference during a Gamergate panel. People were leaving their homes. I mean, shit went sideways, and there was really no logic to it. The severity of what was going on did not fit what it was about. But it wasn't about what it was about anymore. It was about identity. And it was about people thinking that another group was trying to culturally wipe them out. That's what it became about. People didn't like being what they felt was lied about. People didn't like false stories being spread about them. People didn't like feeling like their identity was attacked. There was this whole gamers are dead articles thing that was a really bad attempt to invoke death of the author in a place that it really didn't belong. And anybody who tried to report objectively, which is what on paper you're supposed to do, just got demolished, because unless you had a faction backing you, you were just overwhelmed. They went after your monetization. They tried to get you fired. They tanked advertising rates in the gaming industry because nobody wanted to put their products on misery, right? And so I'm still recovering financially from what happened to me because I tried to do my job during Gamergate. And it put me off the whole games journalism thing just because of all the slime that was going on. And one of the things I experienced from the inside was, and I think this is very, very relevant to understanding why the media is behaving the way it is with the Depp-Heard thing, was I would go in and try to pitch an objective story about what was going on about Gamergate. And what I heard over and over and over again is, nope, it's Milo, it's Breitbart, we're not touching it. The only stories any other form of media would run was anti-Gamergate articles because it was Breitbart and Steve Bannon and Milo Yiannopoulos were seen as such a threat to all that was good that it was, we're fighting a war, right? It's the war effort. And I'm putting no moral judgment on that. I think it's a different morality. I don't agree with it. I think that as a reporter, first and foremost, it's about reporting the facts. Once you've reported your facts, okay, write a separate article about your opinion about it. But don't shit where you eat. And this is why I'm so, all right, what do we know? What do we absolutely know? Let's make sure I understand this, right? Jump to Amber Heard, Johnny Depp. It's not about Johnny Depp. It's about the Daily Wire. It's about Ben Shapiro. It's about the fact that they picked a side. And so the other pole of the media, and that is you watch it, right? It starts with the obvious left-wing sites, and then it starts drifting into NBC, CBS, right? Stuff that's more mainstream. It is about, if Shapiro's for it, we're against it, right? And they think that's doing their jobs. They think that that is honest reporting. There has been a shift in the ethics of news now, where it is not enough to report the facts. You're taught now, you have to contextualize the facts for people so they can understand it. Context very quickly becomes bias. And so if you wonder why the media reporting on the Depp-Heard thing is so seemingly out of whack from the opinions of people who watch the trial, that's a big part of the reason why. Another part of the reason why is the ongoing systemic problems with science and tech reporting. That standard media is rotten at understanding anything in the technological space. So they get these reports from these companies and they don't understand what they mean. And so you get this case of broken telephone. Gamergate was the same way. Oh, it was this mob of harassers and pretty much everybody involved in Gamergate was like, no, man, there's a chunk of third-party trolls, which you'll notice off the top. I was like, it wasn't actually pro-Gamergate. It was this other troll group. There was this group of just third-party trolls who just wanted to muck it all up, throw mud in the air, start shit. And there was an FBI investigation into that, which basically confirmed that that was true. That they were playing both sides, but they thought that they could cause the most shit stirring up anti-Gamergate sentiment by going more sort of pro-Gamergate. They got a bigger pop out of attacking women, and therefore they did it. Jump to now. You can analyze activity on social media. You can see who's talking about whom on social media. But what you measure and what your measurements are really skew the results. There was another thing similarly. There's a story about the Restore the Snyderverse stuff, the Justice League, the Snyder Cut thing. And, Rolling Stone published a searing headline of, fueled by trolls. It was 13% troll activity, which is relatively high. The baseline is 3 to 5%. This was 13%. But you can hardly say that 13% is fueling the opinions of millions. It doesn't work that way. Right. Similarly, there are a couple of bot companies that some people say that like analyst companies. Some people say that they're being paid by Amber Heard. I have seen no direct evidence of that. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying I haven't seen it. But a few other companies places like Cloudflare and things like that, analyzed it just based on interest. And they said that it's about 11% bot activity. It exists on both sides. It's high, but it's not going to turn any tables, right? But the report that got circulated to the press only analyzed the stuff that was nasty to Amber Heard. And to me, the bar for abusive behavior on that report was too low to be useful. And again, remember I said off the bat, this is celebrities. Gamergate was a couple of regular people, not the same standard, right? If we're to compare, say, the media fallout from Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars, a lot of people had opinions about that. And a lot of people said Chris Rock deserved to get hit. Now, that exact statement, that Amber Heard deserved to be abused because she lied, was treated as abusive behavior by the company doing the analysis that the media companies are running with right now. And that's why, again, remember I said off the beginning, I'm like, let's switch the genders here. How would I read this post that started Gamergate? If it's okay to say Chris Rock deserved to get hit, I absolutely do not agree. That fucking horrified me. Okay, like what? He told a dumb joke. He didn't deserve to get slapped. But Will Smith was defending his woman of it. No, it was all bullshit. It was knee-jerk. It was But if that's not abusive, and, you know, all the memes that... Could you imagine people making light of a moment where you were physically assaulted? Oh, but that's what he signed up for. He's an entertainer. Right, exactly. So if that's true of Chris Rock, same rules apply to Amber Heard, right? People aren't going after her because she's a woman. People are going after her because she lied in a way that people find disgusting. That's, if you don't believe she lied, that's fine. That's the sincerely held belief of the people who are going after her. Now, are some of the things being said misogynist? Yes. But it's a minority, right? Using misogynist language that you don't realize has that charge is not the same thing as going after somebody because they're a woman. And I have had some really challenging conversations with people about the use of the C-bomb, and people who insist that it's a term of endearment. Okay. I don't know if they believe it or not, but like I said, it's still dropping certain language does not automatically mean that people have this searing hatred of a woman because she is a woman and must destroy the woman, right? Which is what Gamergate became and what the Amber Heard thing has become. And I followed the Depp-Heard thing in part because a lot of my private one-on-one clients were bringing it up. Men, victims of abuse, Johnny Depp gave them an opening to talk about it, right? But I also started going, this has the potential to become about a bunch of things that it's not about. And it did. And I'm glad I watched it, and I'm glad, because this is what you do. You go down as a reporter and you talk to people. You find out what their actual motivations are. You confirm they're real people. You get a sense of who they are. And it has been very strange to me who the media elevated in this whole Depp-Heard thing. They were not the highest quality YouTubers that were covering the whole thing who were critical of Amber Heard. They were the most inflammatory. The same thing happened in Gamergate. They didn't elevate the valid critics, the people who are playing fair. They elevated the yahoos who just wanted to sling dirt. That actually increases the number of dirt slingers and suppresses the amount of quality commentary. And this is why I do things like Feedback Friday, because I want to actively reward high quality commenters, even when they criticize me, if I think they're adding something to the conversation, right? And I do that in part because I actually want to make online discourse better. And I really think that there's a tail wagging the dog phenomenon going here that really deserves to be examined, which is why I'm making this video. Because the media is making all the same mistakes it made during Gamergate, and that's why I believe it's systemic and three-pronged, right? One, it's the culture war. If the right picks a side, the left must automatically pick a side. It's brainless, but it happens. Two, tech reporters from mainstream news outlets get snowblind by statistics and they misinterpret them. They rely too often on third-party studies instead of first-party on-the-ground reporting. And they get too caught up in cherry-picked personal anecdotes. And then we get this thing about narratives and the fact that it's a defamation trial and a bunch of other things and SEO and all that stuff. But this does matter because the internet's not going away. We have to learn how to communicate with each other. And I do think that the media, especially big media, does have a responsibility to understand this stuff better, to do better with this stuff so that they're actually a force for good instead of a force for entropy and actually encouraging bad actors and discouraging either regular people wanting to voice their opinions that the internet could otherwise empower, which is what journalism's supposed to be about, telling the stories of regular people. But also just in terms of the quality of the discourse, they are actively making it worse because they're getting too involved in the politics. They're getting too involved in the politicized narrative, and they're not focused enough on what context actually is for a story. So hopefully you enjoyed this, my context. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. It would help so much to have some Patreon support or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.